911, what's your emergency? Oh my God. The sharks. She's under the water. There's so much blood. Please, you have to send someone now. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Where are you? Ocean World Marine Park. The Shark Lagoon. Sarah went in and, oh God, I can't see her anymore. We're dispatching emergency services immediately. Stay on the line. They're still circling. 3 of them. Please hurry. In the pristine waters of Ocean World Marine Park in San Diego, California, beneath a cloudless August morning sky, what began as a routine habitat maintenance dive would become a nightmare that shattered an entire community's trust in captive animal facilities forever. Sarah Williams was 28 years old, a marine biologist whose infectious laugh could be heard across the park every morning as she prepared for her. She had dedicated her entire adult life to understanding and protecting marine predators, especially sharks. That morning she had kissed her fiancé goodbye, grabbed her usual green tea latte, and headed to work with the same enthusiasm she'd shown every day for the past 5 years. She had no idea that in less than 2 hours, the creatures she loved more than anything in the world would turn the crystal-clear waters of the Shark Lagoon into a scene of unimaginable horror. This is Sarah Williams's story. A story of passion turned to tragedy, trust shattered in seconds, and the moment when 3 captive sharks forgot 20 years of training and remembered what they truly were: apex predators. You're watching Nightmare Animal Encounters, where we bring you the most shocking real-life animal attacks that made headlines around the world. If this story grips you, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because what you're about to witness will change how you see marine parks forever. And trust me, after hearing what happened in that lagoon, you'll never look at captive sharks the same way again. Ocean World Marine Park had been San Diego's premier marine attraction for over 30 years. The Shark Lagoon, their crown jewel, housed a 750,000-gallon habitat where visitors could watch sand tiger sharks, nurse sharks, and most notably, 3 adult lemon sharks glide peacefully past underwater viewing windows. These weren't wild animals. They were born in captivity, hand-raised by trainers, and had been swimming with divers daily for 2 decades without a single incident. But on August 15, 2019, something changed. Something that expert animal behaviorists are still trying to understand. What could make 3 sharks that had been fed by hand since birth, that had swum peacefully with hundreds of divers, suddenly attack with the coordinated precision of wild predators? Security cameras would capture every horrifying second. Witnesses would provide testimonies that haunt them to this day. Sarah Williams, the young woman who believed sharks were misunderstood creatures deserving our protection, would pay the ultimate price for a trust that should never have been broken. The emergency call came in at 9:47 a.m. By 9:52, paramedics were racing through the park gates. But in the Shark Lagoon, 5 minutes was an eternity. And for Sarah Williams, it was already too late. What follows is her story, pieced together from witness accounts, official reports, and exclusive interviews with those who knew her best. This is the tragic tale of a woman who loved sharks more than life itself, and the morning when that love was betrayed in the most brutal way imaginable. Sarah Williams wasn't just another marine biologist. She was Ocean World's youngest senior shark specialist and a local hero who had single-handedly changed how San Diego viewed these misunderstood predators. Born in 1991 in the coastal town of Encinitas, California, Sarah grew up with sand between her toes and salt water in her veins. Her passion for sharks began at age 7, when her father, a naval officer stationed at Camp Pendleton, took her to Ocean World for the first time. While other children recoiled at the shark exhibit, Sarah pressed her small hands against the glass, mesmerized. "Daddy, they're not scary," she had whispered. "They're beautiful." Her mother, Elena, would later recall how that single moment changed the trajectory of their daughter's entire life. Sarah's childhood bedroom became a shrine to sharks. Posters of great whites covered every wall. She devoured every book about marine predators in the Encinitas Public Library. Her teachers remembered her as the quiet girl who came alive only when discussing the ocean. Sarah didn't just love sharks, her fifth-grade teacher Mrs. Patterson recalled. She understood them in a way that was almost spiritual. Even at 10 years old, she would correct misconceptions about shark attacks with scientific facts. She was on a mission. Her teenage years were spent volunteering at the Pacific Marine Mammal Center and later interning at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. But her peers were at parties. Sarah was analyzing shark migration patterns and writing letters to conservation organizations. She graduated valedictorian from La Costa Canyon High School in 2009, her graduation speech focusing on ocean conservation. "The ocean doesn't need us," she had told her classmates. "But we desperately need the ocean. And sharks are the guardians of that ecosystem." Sarah met David Chin during her sophomore year at UC San Diego, where she was pursuing a degree in marine biology. David, an environmental lawyer, was immediately captivated by her passion. She talked about sharks the way poets talk about love. David would later say, his voice breaking. On our first date, she spent 2 hours explaining why sharks were perfect evolutionary machines. I fell in love with her that night, despite her obsession, but because of it. They got engaged in 2018, planning a beach wedding for the following summer. Sarah had joked that she wanted to honeymoon in South Africa, cage diving with great whites. Friends describe Sarah as intensely focused but surprisingly funny. Jessica Martinez, her best friend since college, recalls Sarah's unique sense of humor. She had this shirt that said, "Sharks kill fewer people than vending machines," and she wore it everywhere. She could make shark puns for hours. But when it came to her work, she was laser-focused. She believed she could change how the world saw sharks, one person at a time. But it was Sarah's unwavering belief in the inherent gentleness of captive-raised sharks that would ultimately lead her into danger. She had been working with Ocean World's 3 lemon sharks, Bella, Titan, and Zeus, since they were juveniles. She hand-fed them, swam with them daily, and even trained them to respond to hand signals. "They're like my children," she had posted on Instagram just weeks before the attack. "People ask if I'm scared. How can you be scared of something you raised?" Sarah had earned her master's degree in marine biology from Scripps Institution of Oceanography in 2016, her thesis focusing on human-shark interaction in controlled environments. Her research suggested that captive-raised sharks could form bonds with their caretakers similar to those seen in marine mammals. She had published several papers on the subject, becoming a respected voice in marine biology circles. The International Shark Research Foundation had recently invited her to speak at their annual conference in Australia. Her career at Ocean World began as a junior aquarist in 2014, but her dedication and expertise saw her promoted rapidly. By 2019, she was the lead shark specialist, responsible for the care and training of all 14 sharks in the facility. Her supervisor, Dr. Michael Harrison, praised her work ethic. Sarah arrived first and left last. She knew each shark's personality, their preferences, their moods. She could tell if something was wrong just by watching them swim. "I've never seen anyone with such an intuitive connection to these animals." Yet those who knew Sarah best would later say there were signs of her becoming too comfortable, too trusting. Her colleague, Robert Kim, remembered a conversation from just a month before the attack. "I told her she was getting too relaxed around Titan. He'd been showing signs of food aggression." But Sarah laughed it off. She said, "Rob, I've been swimming with Titan for 5 years. He's a sweetheart." She had this unshakable faith in those sharks. Sarah's morning routine was legendary at Ocean World. She'd arrive at 6 a.m., 2 hours before the park opened, to check on her babies. She'd prep their food, check water quality, and often just sit by the lagoon, watching them swim. Coworkers would find her talking to the sharks, calling them by name, convinced they recognized her voice. It wasn't anthropomorphism, she had insisted in a staff meeting. "There's growing evidence that sharks can recognize individual humans. The bond we have is real." Her dedication extended beyond work hours. Sarah volunteered with shark conservation groups, gave talks at schools, and ran a popular YouTube channel called Sarah Swims with Sharks, where she documented her daily interactions and educated viewers about shark behavior. Her videos, showing her swimming peacefully alongside the massive predators, had garnered over 100,000 subscribers. Comments praised her bravery and passion, though some marine biologists privately expressed concern about the message she was sending. The tragedy that would unfold was made more heartbreaking by Sarah's plans for the future. She and David had just put a down payment on a house in Solana Beach. She was working on a children's book about shark conservation. Ocean World was considering her proposal for an expanded education program. At 28, Sarah Williams was living her dream, surrounded by the creatures she loved, educating the world about their importance. But dreams built on trust can shatter in an instant. And in the predator-filled waters of the Shark Lagoon, trust was a luxury that Sarah Williams could no longer afford. Lemon sharks are among the most studied shark species in the world. In the wild, they inhabit the coastal waters of the Atlantic and Pacific oceans, growing up to 11 feet long and weighing over 400 pounds. They're known for their yellowish-brown coloring that allows them to blend with sandy ocean floors, their social nature, and their relatively docile temperament around humans. Statistics show that unprovoked lemon shark attacks on humans are exceptionally rare, fewer than 10 recorded incidents in the past century. But statistics mean nothing when instinct takes over. The 3 lemon sharks that would change Sarah Williams's life forever were far from ordinary wild specimens. Bella, Titan, and Zeus had been born at Ocean World Marine Park as part of their breeding program in 1999, making them 20 years old at the time of the attack. Each shark had a distinct personality that Sarah had documented meticulously in her research notes. Bella, the only female, was 8 feet long and known for her gentle nature. She would often swim slowly along the viewing windows, seeming to enjoy the attention of visitors. Titan, the largest at 10 feet, was the dominant male, identified by a distinctive scar on his dorsal fin from a juvenile squabble. Zeus, slightly smaller at 9 feet, was what Sarah called the Joker, playful and curious, often stealing enrichment toys from the other sharks. Sarah first encountered these 3 sharks when she joined Ocean World in 2014. They were already 15 years old, well established in their routines, and accustomed to human interaction. The previous lead specialist had warned Sarah that while the sharks were habituated to divers, they were still wild animals at heart. "Never forget what they are," he had told her on his last day. 20 years in a tank doesn't erase millions of years of evolution. Sarah had nodded politely but privately disagreed. She believed that captive-born sharks were fundamentally different from their wild counterparts. For 5 years, Sarah and the sharks developed what appeared to be a remarkable relationship. She entered their habitat at least twice daily for feedings and health checks. The sharks would recognize her blue wetsuit and yellow fins, often approaching her before she even entered the water. Sarah trained them using positive reinforcement, teaching them to respond to different hand signals. Bella would roll over for belly rubs, something unheard of in wild sharks. Titan learned to open his mouth on command for dental checks. Zeus would play a game where he'd push a ball back to Sarah with his snout. But experts were beginning to notice concerning changes. Dr. Patricia Meredith, a shark behaviorist from the California Academy of Sciences, had visited Ocean World 3 months before the attack to observe their shark program. Her report, obtained exclusively for this story, painted a troubling picture. "While the training program is impressive," Dr. Meredith wrote, "I observed several instances of resource-guarding behavior, particularly from the dominant male, Titan. During feeding sessions, he displayed increasingly aggressive posturing toward the other sharks and maintained uncomfortably close proximity to the trainer. These are classic pre-aggressive behaviors that suggest the sharks are becoming less predictable." Sarah had dismissed Dr. Meredith's concerns in a staff meeting. Dr. Meredith observed them for 3 days, Sarah argued. I've been with them for 5 years. Titan's not aggressive, he's protective. He sees me as part of his pod. It's actually a sign of how well bonded we are. She showed videos of Titan gently taking fish from her hand, of him allowing her to touch his gills during health checks. Does this look like aggression to you? She asked her colleagues. The warning signs, however, were mounting. In May 2019, 3 months before the attack, Bella had unexpectedly bumped Sarah hard during routine feeding, something she'd never done before. Sarah's dive log noted the incident but attributed it to excitement over a new food enrichment protocol. 2 weeks later, Zeus bit through his feeding stick, something that required significant force and had never happened in his 20 years. Manufacturing defect, Sarah wrote in her report. The most significant incident occurred on July 4th, 6 weeks before the fatal attack. During a special holiday show for park visitors, all 3 sharks displayed what veteran trainer Mark Thompson described as synchronized stalking behavior. For nearly 10 minutes, they circled Sarah in a pattern typically seen in wild sharks preparing to feed on large prey. Underwater footage shows Sarah seeming oblivious to the behavior, continuing her demonstration of hand signals while hundreds of visitors watched through the viewing panels. I've never seen anything like it, Thompson later testified. They moved like a hunting pack. My blood ran cold. Sarah's response to the July 4th incident revealed her dangerous level of denial. In an email to Dr. Harrison, she wrote, "The sharks were simply excited by the larger crowd. Their circling was actually them maintaining visual contact with me while navigating around each other. If anything, shows how well they work together as a group. I see it as a positive development in their social dynamics." She included links to research papers about cooperative behavior in lemon sharks, using science to rationalize away clear warning signs. Other staff members began expressing concerns. Janet Walsh, who worked the morning shift with Sarah, noticed the sharks becoming increasingly possessive during feeding times. They started positioning themselves between Sarah and the habitat exit, Walsh recalled. Titan especially would block her path to the ladder. She'd laugh and swim around him, but it made me nervous. It wasn't playful anymore, it was controlling. The shark's feeding behavior had also changed dramatically in the months leading up to the attack. Ocean World's records show that food consumption among all 3 sharks had increased by 30% since January 2019. Sarah attributed this to healthy appetites in mature adults, but Dr. Meredith's analysis suggested something more concerning. Increased feeding aggression often precedes territorial disputes. The sharks may be viewing the feeding sessions, and by extension, the feeder, as a resource to be competed for or controlled. Environmental factors may have contributed to the building tension. The summer of 2019 was unusually warm, with water temperatures in the Shark Lagoon averaging 3 to 4 degrees higher than normal. Marine biologists know that warmer water can increase metabolic rates in sharks, making them more active and potentially more aggressive. The facility's water quality reports from July showed elevated stress markers in all 3 sharks. But Sarah advocated against any changes to their routine. They're adapting well, she insisted. Changing their schedule now would cause more stress. Sarah's social media posts from this period reveal her complete trust in the sharks. On July 20th, she posted a video of herself floating motionless, while all 3 sharks swam inches from her body. "Trust exercise with my babies," she captioned it. 20 years of love and respect. The video went viral, garnering over 1 million views and thousands of comments praising her bravery. Marine biologist Dr. Richard Chin commented, "This is incredibly dangerous behavior. These animals are not pets." Sarah replied publicly, "With respect, Dr. Chen, you don't know these individuals like I do." The final warning came just 1 week before the attack. On August 8th, Titan bit Bella during a feeding session, leaving deep tooth marks on her pectoral fin. It was the first serious aggression between the sharks in 5 years. Security footage shows Sarah separating them, then spending an extra hour in the water, calming them down. Her incident report minimized the event. Minor disagreement over food positioning. Resolved. Through redirection training. Both animals calm and responsive post-incident. Dr. Harrison would later testify that he had considered restricting Sarah's solo dives after the Titan Bella incident but decided against it. Sarah was our most experienced shark handler, he explained. If I had suggested she couldn't handle the shark safely, she would have seen it as a betrayal. She had invested so much of herself in those animals. They weren't just her job, they were her life's work. On August 14th, the day before the attack, Sarah spent her usual morning hours with the sharks. Security footage shows nothing unusual. She conducted health checks, played enrichment games, and hand-fed all 3 sharks without incident. Her final log entry was characteristically optimistic, beautiful morning with my 3 angels. Bella's fin healing well. Titan affectionate and responsive. Zeus playful as always. Quality excellent. Planning to test new training sequence tomorrow, synchronized swim patterns for upcoming educational presentation. Can't wait to show everyone how intelligent and gentle these amazing creatures really are. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, her 3 angels would prove just how wrong she had been. In the 6 weeks leading up to August 15th, the atmosphere at Ocean World Marine Park had grown increasingly tense. Staff members were divided between those who supported Sarah's approach and those who believed she was taking unnecessary risks. The tension came to a head during a heated staff meeting on July 28th, where veteran trainer Marcus Rodriguez confronted Sarah directly. "You're going to get yourself killed," he said bluntly. "Those sharks are showing textbook pre-attack behaviors. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm telling you, something bad is coming." Sarah's response was calm but firm. "Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but you work with sea lions. Sharks are different. What you're interpreting as aggression is actually increased trust. They're comfortable enough to express their full range of natural behaviors around me." Dr. Michael Harrison found himself caught in the middle. Internal emails obtained through the investigation reveal his growing concerns. August 1st, he wrote to Ocean World's director, "Sarah Williams is our most talented marine biologist, but I'm worried about her judgment regarding the lemon sharks. She's anthropomorphizing their behaviors to a dangerous degree. However, she has 5 years of incident-free diving with these animals. I'm scheduling additional safety reviews but stopping short of restricting her access." The director's response was brief: trust. "Sarah's videos are bringing unprecedented positive attention to our shark program. Just ensure all safety protocols are being followed." Neighbors at Sarah's apartment complex in Pacific Beach began noticing changes in her behavior. Tom and Maria Gonzalez, who lived next door, recalled Sarah coming home later each night, often talking excitedly on the phone about her sharks. "She was obsessed," Maria remembered. "We'd see her on the balcony at midnight, reviewing underwater footage on her laptop. She'd replay the same clips over and over, taking notes. When we asked if everything was okay, she'd say she was making breakthrough discoveries about shark cognition." Sarah's fiancé, David Chin, tried multiple times to discuss his concerns. During a dinner at their favorite restaurant on August 3rd, he broached the subject carefully. "Maybe you should take a few days off," he suggested. "You've been working 12-hour days. When's the last time you took a real break?" Sarah's response was passionate. "David, I'm on the verge of something incredible. The sharks are displaying unprecedented social cooperation. If I can document this properly, it could change how the entire scientific community views shark intelligence. A few more weeks and I'll have enough data to publish." But David noticed troubling signs. Sarah had developed a nervous habit of checking her phone constantly for updates from the overnight staff about the sharks. She kept detailed logs of their every movement, even when she wasn't at work. She knew what time each shark typically slept, when they were most active, their preferred swimming patterns, David later testified. She talked about them like they were family members. Once joked that she spent more time thinking about Titan than about our wedding. She didn't laugh. Sarah's YouTube channel showed increasingly risky behavior. Her video from August 5th, titled, "Swimming with Apex Predators, No Cage, No Fear," showed her floating spread eagle while the 3 sharks circled her in what she called a trust circle. Comments from marine professionals expressed alarm. Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution wrote, "This is not scientific observation, this is thrill-seeking. Disguised as research. You're sending a dangerous message to your followers." Sarah's response was defensive. "I've been criticized my entire career for being too close to my subjects. That closeness is exactly what allows me to make discoveries that distant observers miss." The social media criticism began affecting Sarah professionally. The Marine Biology Association rescinded their invitation for her to speak at their annual conference after reviewing her recent videos. The letter, dated August 7th, stated, "While we admire your passion for shark conservation, we cannot endorse methodologies that put both researcher and animals at unnecessary risk." Sarah was devastated. She spent hours drafting a response, arguing that her methods were revolutionizing human-shark interaction research. Ocean World's marketing department, however, loved Sarah's approach. Ticket sales for the Shark Lagoon exhibit had increased 40% since Sarah's videos went viral. The park's Instagram account, featuring daily photos of Sarah with the sharks, had gained 50,000 followers in just 2 months. Marketing director Jennifer Liu encouraged Sarah to be even more daring. "You're the Jane Goodall of sharks," Liu told her. "People need to see that sharks aren't monsters. You're changing hearts and minds." This external validation reinforced Sarah's belief that her critics were simply jealous or overly conservative. Behind the scenes, other staff members were taking precautions. Security guard James Mitchell began positioning himself closer to the shark lagoon during Sarah's morning dives. "I had a bad feeling," he later said. "The way those sharks watched her had changed. It wasn't curiosity, nor it was focus. Predator focus." He kept a specialized bang stick, an underwater defense weapon, within reach, despite protocols stating they should be locked in the emergency cabinet. "I knew if something went wrong, seconds would matter." Dr. Patricia Meredith made one final attempt to intervene. On August 10th, she called Dr. Harrison directly. The recorded conversation is chilling in hindsight. "Michael, I'm calling as a colleague and friend. You need to pull Sarah out of that water. I've reviewed all the footage from the past. Those sharks are displaying cascade aggression. Each incident is building on the last. In the wild, this leads to attack behavior within days or weeks." Dr. Harrison's response was measured but ultimately dismissive. "Patricia, I appreciate your concern, but Sarah has an intuitive understanding of these animals that data can't capture. We have comprehensive safety protocols in place." Sarah's family was also growing concerned. Her mother, Elena, visited on August 12th for lunch. She found her daughter distracted constantly, checking her phone for updates from the park. "She showed me videos of the sharks for the entire lunch," Elena recalled. "When I suggested she seemed tired, she became defensive. She said I didn't understand how important her work was. She mentioned that Titan had been extra affectionate lately, swimming closer than usual. The way she described it gave me chills, but she was glowing with pride." The weather pattern in the days before the attack added another layer of tension. A series of offshore storms had created unusual pressure, changes that marine biologists know can affect shark behavior. The barometric pressure dropped significantly on August 13th and 14th. Sarah noted in her log that the sharks seemed energized by the weather changes. "Increased activity levels in all 3 specimens," she wrote. "Rapid swimming patterns, particularly from Titan. Zeus displaying repetitive circling behavior. Bella staying close to the cave structure. Classic storm response behavior, fascinating to observe." On August 14th, Sarah's colleague Robert Kim made one last attempt to raise concerns. He pulled her aside after the afternoon feeding. "Sarah, They're not acting right. Titan followed you to the platform 3 times today. That's stalking behavior. Sarah's response revealed her complete misreading of the situation. Robert, he's protective. I've been working with them during their storm anxiety. He's making sure I'm safe. Actually incredibly touching. It shows how far our bond has evolved. That evening, Sarah spent 3 hours preparing for the next day's dive. She reviewed her training plans, prepared specialized feeding portions for each shark, and wrote detailed notes about the synchronized swimming routine she planned to teach them. Her final email, sent at 11:47 p.m. to her research partner at Scripps, was enthusiastic. Tomorrow's session could provide the breakthrough data we've been waiting for. I'm going to attempt the most complex behavioral sequence we've ever tried. If successful, it will prove that captive sharks can learn and perform behaviors that require advanced cognitive processing and social cooperation. Wish me luck. Davidson would later say that Sarah seemed different that final evening. She was almost manic with excitement. She kept talking about how the sharks were ready for the next level of training. When I suggested she bring another diver for safety, she laughed. They don't trust anyone else the way they trust me, she said. Another person would disrupt our connection. They watched a movie together, but Sarah kept pausing to jot down notes about the next day's session. The last thing she said before bed was, "Tomorrow's going to change everything." At Ocean World, the overnight security logs from August 14th to 15th reported unusual activity in the Shark Lagoon. Sharks highly active. Throughout the night, wrote guard Timothy Foster. Continuous rapid swimming. Titan repeatedly surfacing, which is unusual. Zeus and Bella. Following his patterns. Water surface disturbance visible even from the observation deck. Foster considered calling Sarah but decided against it. She would have just said they were excited about tomorrow's training, he later explained. The morning of August 15th dawned clear and still. The storms had passed, leaving behind an eerie calm. The barometric pressure had stabilized. But the Shark Lagoon seemed to retain an electric energy. Maintenance worker Carlos Mendez, who checked the water filtration systems at 5 a.m., noticed something odd. The sharks were swimming in a pattern I'd never seen before. All 3 moving in the same direction, same speed, like they were synchronized. It was beautiful but unsettling. They looked like they were hunting, but there was nothing to hunt. Sarah arrived at 6:15 a.m., earlier than usual. Security footage shows her practically running from her car to the staff entrance, her equipment bag bouncing against her hip. She waved enthusiastically to James Mitchell at the security desk. "Beautiful morning for a swim, James," she called out. Mitchell would later recall that something made him follow her toward the Shark Lagoon instead of returning to his regular rounds. "Call it instinct," he said. But something felt different that morning. The whole park felt like it was holding its breath. Sarah spent 30 minutes preparing for her dive, checking her equipment with unusual care. She tested her underwater communication system twice, verified that the emergency alarm button on her dive belt was functional, and even did something she rarely bothered with. She reviewed the location of all emergency equipment around the lagoon. Her dive log's final entry, written at 7:05 a.m., was routine, water temp 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility, excellent. All 3 sharks active and visible. Bella near the reef structure. Zeus circling the perimeter. Titan stationed near the feeding platform. Eager boy. Equipment check complete. Planning 45-minute session focusing on synchronized swimming patterns. Feeling optimistic about today's potential breakthrough. At 7:15 a.m., Sarah entered the equipment room to put on her wetsuit. Security cameras show her moving with confident efficiency, the result of thousands of similar mornings. She chose her favorite blue wetsuit with yellow stripes, the one she claimed the sharks recognized most easily. She zipped it up, she hummed a tune, the same melody she hummed every morning, a habit her colleagues found endearing. Dr. Harrison arrived at 7:30 a.m. to find Sarah already suited up and reviewing her training notes one final time on the observation deck. "Morning, Michael," she called out cheerfully. Perfect conditions today. I'm going to start with individual reinforcement sessions, then move to the group. Synchronization. I really think they're ready for complex pattern work. Harrison nodded, though he later admitted feeling uneasy. Something about the way the sharks were moving bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. They seemed too focused, too aware. The last person to speak with Sarah before her dive was maintenance supervisor Frank Torres. He was checking the emergency equipment locker. When Sarah approached at 7:45 a.m., "Hey Frank, just wanted to let you know I'll be working in the deep end today near the cave system. If you need to run any pumps, maybe wait until after 9. Frank agreed, then added impulsively, "Be careful in there today, Sarah. My grandmother always said animals act strange when something's coming." Sarah laughed. "Your grandmother sounds like my mother. Don't worry, Frank. We've got my 3 guardian angels watching over me." At exactly 7:52 a.m., Sarah Williams performed her final safety check, adjusted her mask, and took her first steps down the ladder into the shark lagoon. The security camera captured her entering the water with the same confident grace she'd displayed 1,000 times before. She had no idea she had just begun the last 25 minutes of her life. The 3 sharks that she called her guardian angels were already moving into position, their ancient predatory instincts awakening after 20 years of dormancy. The morning that was supposed to showcase a breakthrough in human-shark bonding was about to become a testament to the wild nature that can never be fully tamed. Within minutes, everything Sarah Williams believed about her beloved sharks would be proven tragically, horrifically wrong. Thursday, August 15, 2019, 7:52 a.m. The morning air was crisp and still, carrying the salt scent of the Pacific Ocean just 2 miles away. The temperature was a comfortable 68 degrees Fahrenheit, with scattered clouds beginning to form on the horizon. Sarah Williams stood at the edge of the shark lagoon, her blue and yellow wetsuit gleaming in the early morning sun. She performed her habitual pre-dive ritual, 3 deep breaths, a gentle stretch of her shoulders, and a quick scan of the water's surface. The shark lagoon stretched before her, a massive kidney-shaped habitat containing 750,000 gallons of carefully maintained seawater. The water was crystal clear with visibility exceeding 40 feet, allowing perfect views from the underwater observation panels where tourists would soon gather. The habitat featured artificial reef structures, caves, and sandy bottom areas designed to mimic the shark's natural environment. At the deepest point, near the cave system, the lagoon reached 30 feet. Sarah entered the water at the shallow platform on the north side, her movements captured by multiple security cameras. Timestamp read 7:53 and 14 seconds a.m. as she submerged herself waist-deep and began adjusting her equipment. She wore a standard diving mask, fins, and a weight belt, with an emergency inflation device. Notably, she had chosen not to wear the chainmail suit available for shark interactions, a decision she had made hundreds of times before. "It creates a barrier to trust," she had once explained to a colleague. Titan was positioned approximately 20 feet from the entry platform, hovering motionless near the bottom. The massive 10-foot lemon shark appeared to be resting, but security footage enhanced later would show his eyes tracking Sarah's every movement. His positioning was unusual. Typically, he would approach the platform when Sarah entered, eager for interaction. Today, he waited. Zeus circled the perimeter of the lagoon in a counterclockwise pattern, maintaining a steady speed of approximately 2 miles per hour. His 9-foot body moved with mechanical precision, completing each circuit in exactly 90 seconds. This repetitive behavior had been noted by the overnight staff but wasn't considered alarming. Bella remained near the artificial reef structure on the eastern side of the lagoon, occasionally disappearing into the cave system before emerging seconds later. At approximately 7:54 a.m., Sarah completed her equipment check and pushed off from the platform, entering deeper water with smooth, practice strokes. She swam directly toward the center of the lagoon, where she typically began her training sessions. Her underwater communication device crackled to life as she tested it. "Comm check, this is Sarah in the water. All good down here. The response from the observation booth came immediately. Copy that, Sarah. We have visual. Robert Kim was stationed in the observation booth that morning, monitoring the underwater cameras and maintaining communication with Sarah. He later testified that the first few minutes appeared completely normal. Sarah swam to her usual starting position. Acknowledged her presence but didn't approach immediately, which wasn't unusual. Sometimes they needed a few minutes to wake up during morning sessions. At 7:56 a.m., Sarah began her standard greeting ritual. She positioned herself vertically in the water, a position that made her appear larger and more commanding to the sharks. Using the hand signals she had developed over 5 years, she called each shark individually. Bella responded, first, gliding slowly from the reef structure toward Sarah. The 8-foot female shark approached within 6 feet before veering off, a behavior Sarah had documented as shy greeting. Sarah's voice came through the communication system, cheerful and confident. Bella's being coy this morning. Come on, beautiful girl, don't be shy. She extended her hand, offering the greeting touch that Bella usually accepted. But instead of approaching, Bella circled back toward the reef, maintaining distance. Interesting, Sarah commented. She's displaying avoidance behavior. Maybe she's not feeling social yet. Zeus interrupted his perimeter patrol at 7:58 a.m., suddenly changing direction and swimming directly toward Sarah at increased speed. Robert Kim noticed the change immediately. Zeus broke pattern and accelerated toward Sarah's position. Not aggressive speed, but definitely purposeful. Sarah seemed pleased. She thought he was coming to greet her. The 9-foot male shark approached within 3 feet of Sarah. Before executing what she had termed a flyby, a close pass without contact, Sarah laughed over the comm system. Zeus is feeling playful. Did you see that approach speed? He's full of energy this morning. She performed the hand signal for play, a gesture that usually prompted Zeus to engage with enrichment toys. Instead, he resumed his circling pattern, but now his circles were tighter, centered around Sarah rather than the lagoon perimeter. Titan still hadn't moved from his position near the bottom. Sarah swam down to his depth, approaching slowly and respectfully. In her thousands of previous interactions, Titan would typically acknowledge her approach by lifting slightly off the bottom or turning to face her. This morning, remained perfectly still until she was within 10 feet. Then, captured clearly on camera 3, Titan's posture changed. His pectoral fins angled downward, his back arched slightly, and his tail began moving in slow, powerful sweeps. Dr. Ellen Vasquez, a shark behavior expert who later analyzed the footage, identified this as a classic aggressive display. The body language is unmistakable. Arched back, depressed pectoral fins, exaggerated tail movements. These are warning signals. In the wild, this posture says bet off or I will attack. It's deeply concerning that an experienced handler like Sarah didn't recognize or acknowledge these signals. Sarah's interpretation, recorded on the comm system, was drastically different. Oh, Titan's doing his dominance display. He's showing off for the girls. Big handsome boy, aren't you? She maintained her approach, extending her hand in the greeting gesture Titan had responded to thousands of times before. At 8:01 a.m., Titan finally moved. In one powerful thrust, he rose from the bottom and passed within inches of Sarah, close enough that the water displacement pushed her backward. Whoa! Sarah exclaimed, laughing. Someone's feeling feisty. Hey big guy, I get it. You're the boss. Let's try this differently. She ascended to mid-water, attempting to give Titan space while maintaining visual contact. But the damage to the session's dynamics was already done. All 3 sharks were now in motion, their movements coordinated in a way that Sarah had never documented in 5 years of observation. Maintenance supervisor Frank Torres was walking along the lagoon's edge at 8:03 a.m. when he noticed the unusual activity. I'd seen thousands of Sarah's training sessions from above. This looked different. The sharks were moving like a unit, keeping Sarah at the center of their formation. Reminded me of documentary footage I'd seen of wild sharks hunting tuna, that same coordinated movement. At 8:04 a.m., Sarah attempted to regain control of the session. She swam to the feeding station and retrieved the bucket of prepared fish, hoping that structured feeding might calm the shark's energy. Okay, team, let's do some target training. Bella, you're first. She held out the target pole, with a piece of mackerel attached. Bella approached but didn't take the food, instead bumping the pole hard enough to knock it from Sarah's grip. That's unusual, Sarah commented, her voice carrying the first hint of uncertainty. Bella, what's wrong, girl? Not hungry. She retrieved the pole and tried again. This time, Zeus intercepted, snatching the fish with unusual aggression and causing Sarah to jerk back reflexively. Easy, Zeus. We use gentle mouths, remember? The first truly alarming moment came at 8:06 a.m. All three sharks suddenly converged on Sarah's position simultaneously. Security footage from multiple angles shows them approaching from different directions, timing their movements so they would arrive at the same point at the same moment. Sarah, focused on retrieving the dropped feeding pole, didn't notice until they were within 6 feet. Oh, she exclaimed, spinning in the water to keep visual contact with all three predators. Okay, this is new. Are you guys practicing synchronized swimming without me? Her attempt at humor masked growing concern. The sharks began circling her in a tight formation, maintaining perfect spacing between each other. Titan led, with Zeus and Bella following in sequence. Their circle was approximately 12 feet in diameter, with Sarah at the exact center. Dr. Marcus Chin, a marine biologist specializing in predatory behavior, later described this footage as textbook hunting formation. He explained, "This is called carousel feeding behavior. Sharks use it to disorient and trap prey." The fact that 3 captive-raised sharks spontaneously exhibited this wild hunting technique is extraordinary and terrifying. It suggests their predatory instincts were never truly dormant, just suppressed. Sarah's training kicked in. She recognized the danger of being surrounded and attempted to break the circle by swimming directly toward the gap between Bella and Zeus. But as she moved, the sharks adjusted, maintaining the formation. Okay, this isn't funny anymore, she said over the comm. I'm going to need you to activate the acoustic deterrent in about 30 seconds if they don't break pattern. Robert Kim reached for the acoustic device control, a high-frequency sound generator designed to disperse the sharks without harming them. But before he could activate it, Sarah changed her mind. Wait, hold off. I think I know what's happening. They're responding to the storm pressure. Changes from yesterday. This might be important data. Let me try something. At 8:09 a.m., Sarah made a decision that would prove fatal. Instead of immediately exiting the water when she had the chance, she attempted to use her established training commands to regain control. She positioned herself vertically again and performed the scatter signal, arms spread wide, then brought together in a clap. This command had worked hundreds of times before to send the sharks to different areas of the lagoon. The sharks' response was immediate and terrifying. Instead of dispersing, they tightened their circle. The diameter decreased from 12 feet to 8 feet. Their speed increased. Titan's massive tail created a vortex effect that began pulling Sarah off balance. Zeus and Bella matched his pace perfectly, their bodies becoming blurs of motion in the churning water. Acoustic now! Sarah shouted at 8:10 and 22 seconds a.m. Robert Kim slammed the activation button. The underwater speakers emitted a powerful pulse, designed to overwhelm the shark's sensitive lateral line system. In hundreds of previous tests, this sound had caused immediate dispersal. Time, the sharks didn't even flinch. They continued their relentless circling, now close enough that their bodies occasionally brushed against Sarah's legs. Security guard James Mitchell was already running toward the lagoon with the emergency equipment. He had been watching from the main path and recognized the hunting behavior from nature documentaries. I knew she had maybe 60 seconds before they attacked. The way they were spiraling in, getting closer with each pass. I'd seen lions do the same thing with prey. test, circle, then strike. At 8:11 a.m., Sarah made her first attempt to exit the water. She broke through the shark's formation with a powerful burst of swimming, heading for the nearest ladder on the eastern wall. For a moment, it seemed she might make it. She covered 15 feet in seconds, her athletic training evident in her powerful strokes. Then Titan struck. Not a full attack, but a warning bump that sent Sarah tumbling through the water. Contact, she gasped over the comm. Titan just hit me. Not a bite, but deliberate contact. Her words were cut off as Zeus delivered a similar blow from the opposite side. The impact was captured on camera 5, showing the 9-foot shark driving his snout into Sarah's ribs with enough force to expel the air from her lungs. Dr. Harrison arrived at the lagoon edge at 8:12 a.m., having been alerted by the emergency call. What he saw made his blood run cold. Sarah was trying to reach the wall, but the sharks were taking turns hitting her. Not biting, but ramming her with their snouts. It was coordinated, deliberate. They were weakening her, testing her defenses. Sarah's wetsuit provided minimal protection against the impacts. Each hit drove more air from her lungs, making it harder to stay afloat. Her training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not this, a coordinated assault by 3 sharks she had hand-raised from pups. Between impacts, she gasped into the comm, "They're hunting me. Oh God, they're actually hunting me." At 8:13 a.m., Bella made the first serious attack run. The smallest of the 3 sharks approached from below, jaws open, displaying the rows of sharp teeth that Sarah had inspected countless times during health checks. Sarah saw her coming and managed to get her arms up in defense. Bella's jaws closed on Sarah's left forearm, teeth penetrating the wetsuit and drawing first blood. Bite. Bella's got my arm. Sarah's scream echoed across the lagoon. The communication system captured every second of her terror. Bella held on for approximately 3 seconds, not the devastating bite and tear of a feeding attack, but an exploratory bite, testing. She released and circled away, leaving Sarah bleeding from multiple puncture wounds. The sight and scent of blood in the water triggered an immediate change in all 3 sharks. Their movements became faster, more erratic. The controlled hunting pattern dissolved into chaotic energy. Titan rose from below, his massive body breaking the surface as he positioned himself for an attack run. Zeus abandoned his circling pattern and went into what Sarah had once described as prey drive mode, rapid, darting movements. Focused entirely on the target. James Mitchell reached the lagoon edge with the bang stick at 8:14 a.m. He could see Sarah treading water approximately 25 feet from the edge, blood spreading in a dark cloud around her. The sharks were converging from 3 directions. I had 1 shot with the bang stick and I had to enter the water to use it. I knew if I missed or if it misfired, we'd have 2 victims instead of 1. Sarah made one final attempt to use her training. Bleeding and exhausted, she performed the emergency recall signal she had taught all 3 sharks, a specific hand motion combined with a vocal call. Bella, Titan, station. For a split second, Zeus hesitated, his 5 years of training conflicting with millions of years of instinct. Then Titan struck. The massive 10-foot shark hit Sarah from below at 8:14 and 47 seconds a.m. Unlike Bella's exploratory bite, this was a full predatory attack. His jaws closed around Sarah's lower torso, teeth designed for gripping and tearing, doing exactly what evolution had shaped them to do. Sarah's scream, captured on the communication system, was cut short as Titan pulled her under. Sarah's under. Titan has her. Robert Kim's voice cracked as he made the emergency call. We need immediate water rescue. Shark attack in progress. Subject is underwater. Underwater cameras captured the horrific scene beneath the surface. Titan held Sarah in his jaws, shaking her the way sharks shake large prey to disorient and weaken them. Sarah fought desperately, striking at Titan's sensitive eyes and gills with her free hand. Her other arm hung uselessly, still bleeding from Bella's bite. Zeus circled, waiting for his opportunity. Bella approached from another angle, the taste of blood having awakened. Instincts her captive life had never allowed her to express. At 8:15 and 12 seconds a.m., 23 minutes after entering the water for what should have been a routine training session, Sarah Williams managed to break free from Titan's grip. The security footage shows her breaking the surface, gasping for air, her wetsuit torn and blood pouring from devastating wounds. She was less than 15 feet from the lagoon wall, but might as well have been a mile away. "Help me," she gasped into the comm system, her voice barely audible. "It's coming back." The attack escalated with terrifying speed. At 8:15 and 15 seconds a.m., just 3 seconds after Sarah broke the surface, Zeus struck from the left side. Jaws clamped down on Sarah's shoulder and upper chest, his teeth penetrating deep into muscle tissue. The force of his bite was captured on underwater camera 7, showing the 9-foot shark's body contorting with the power of his attack. Sarah's agonized scream echoed across the lagoon as Zeus began the characteristic head-shaking motion that sharks use to tear flesh from large prey. "Zeus has her upper body attack." Robert Kim's panicked voice crackled over the emergency frequency. His hands shook as he tried to activate additional deterrents, but nothing in Ocean World's safety protocols had prepared them for a coordinated attack by multiple sharks. The acoustic deterrent continued to pulse uselessly while the sharks remained focused on their prey. Sarah fought with desperate strength, using her uninjured right arm to strike at Zeus's gills. Her self-defense training, which included specific techniques for shark attacks, gave her the knowledge to target the most sensitive areas. Her thumb found Zeus's left gill slit and she drove it in hard, causing the shark to release his grip momentarily. But the damage was already severe. Blood poured from deep lacerations across her shoulder and chest, mixing with the existing blood in the water to create an expanding crimson cloud. Titan circled below, his massive form visible as a dark shadow beneath the thrashing water. Blood from his initial attack on Sarah's torso had triggered what marine biologists call feeding frenzy mode, a state where sharks' predatory instincts completely override any trained behaviors. His movements were no longer the measured, almost gentle approaches Sarah had documented thousands of times. These were the movements of an apex predator that had detected wounded prey. At 8:15 and 32 seconds a.m., Sarah made a desperate lunge for the lagoon wall. Despite her catastrophic injuries, adrenaline gave her the strength for one final attempt at escape. She covered 6 feet in 2 seconds, her right arm pulling her through the water while her left arm hung useless, tendons severed by Bella's initial bite. James Mitchell was already kneeling at the edge, bang stick extended, screaming for her to reach for him. "Come on, Sarah. Reach for me." Mitchell's voice carried across the water. Sarah's eyes met his. Later, he would describe the look as pure terror mixed with disbelief. She extended her right arm, fingers stretching for salvation. Their fingertips were inches apart when Bella struck. From below, the 8-foot female shark, who Sarah had once described as gentle as a puppy, bit down on Sarah's right leg just above the knee. The bite was precise and devastating, severing the femoral artery. The underwater cameras captured the moment in horrific detail, Bella's jaws closing with approximately 400 pounds of pressure per square inch, her teeth designed by millions of years of evolution to slice through flesh and bone. Sarah's scream cut through the morning air as Bella pulled her backward, away from the wall and Mitchell's outstretched hand. The security guard made a split-second decision and entered the water, bang stick ready. But before he could position himself for a shot, Titan rose from the depths. Like a nightmare made real, the 10-foot male struck Sarah from below, his massive jaws closing around her entire midsection. "No. Sarah." Dr. Harrison had arrived at the edge and watched helplessly as Titan pulled Sarah under for the second time. The surface of the water exploded in chaos, thrashing tails, dorsal fins cutting through the bloody foam, and glimpses of Sarah's blue and yellow wetsuit being pulled in different directions. Underwater, The three sharks entered what Dr. Marcus Chen would later describe as competitive feeding behavior. With Sarah grievously wounded and unable to defend herself effectively, the sharks' cooperation dissolved into competition. Titan maintained his grip on her torso while Zeus attacked from above, targeting her upper body. Bella, still gripping Sarah's leg, began the violent side-to-side thrashing motion that sharks used to remove chunks of flesh from large prey. At 8:16 and 5 seconds a.m., Frank Torres arrived with the emergency rifle loaded with powerheads, specialized ammunition designed to stop large sharks. It took aim at Titan's massive form, visible just below the surface, but hesitated. I couldn't get a clear shot without risking hitting Sarah. They were all tangled together, rolling and thrashing. It was like trying to shoot into a blender. Sarah's communication device, miraculously still functioning, transmitted her final coherent words at 8:16 and 18 seconds a.m. "Tell David, I'm sorry, it was wrong." Then only the sounds of churning water and impact. James Mitchell, still in the water up to his waist, made 3 attempts to use the bang stick. The first 2 times, the shark's violent movements knocked him back. On his 3rd attempt, he managed to strike Zeus on the snout, triggering the explosive charge. The shark released his grip and veered away, momentarily stunned. But with Titan and Bella still attacking, the brief reprieve meant nothing. The attack reached its horrific climax at 8:16 and 45 seconds a.m. Titan, the shark Sarah had hand-raised from a pup, the one she had called her gentle giant, bit down with his full force. The underwater cameras recorded him shaking Sarah's body with such violence that Bella was forced to release her grip. Sarah's body went limp, no longer fighting, no longer moving. "She's not moving. Sarah's not moving." Robert Kim's voice broke completely as he made the call. "We need immediate medical. Victim is non-responsive. Multiple sharks still attacking." Even with Sarah clearly unconscious or dead, the sharks continued their assault. This behavior, known as surplus killing, is seen in wild predators, but was shocking in animals that had been hand-fed their entire lives. Zeus returned despite the bang stick strike, joining Titan in pulling Sarah's body deeper into the lagoon. The 3 sharks fought over their prey, their movements creating a whirlpool of blood and foam that spread across the entire western section of the habitat. Dr. Alan Vasquez, reviewing the footage later, noted a chilling detail. At 8:17 and 10 seconds a.m., you can see all 3 sharks suddenly coordinate again. Stop fighting each other and begin moving in the same direction, dragging the body toward the cave system. It's as if their temporary competition ended and they reverted to cooperative behavior, but now focused on securing their kill rather than making it. Emergency responders were assembling at the lagoon edge, but entering the water was impossible with 3 adult sharks in full feeding mode. Paramedic Jennifer Walsh later testified, "We could see the victim being pulled toward the deeper section. The water was so thick with blood we couldn't even make out individual sharks anymore, just moving shadows. Protocol says we can't enter until the scene is secure. We had to watch, knowing every second counted, but also knowing anyone who entered would become another victim." At 8:17 and 42 seconds a.m., the sharks succeeded in pulling Sarah's body into the cave system at the deep end of the lagoon. The caves, designed to give the sharks a naturalistic environment, now became a horrific scene. Security cameras positioned inside the caves showed the 3 sharks wedging themselves into the confined space, still gripping different parts of Sarah's body. Ocean World's emergency response team activated Protocol 7. The last resort measure that Sarah herself had helped design but had prayed would never be used. Massive doses of sedative were released into the water through the filtration system. The chemical, designed to immobilize sharks for emergency medical procedures, would take several minutes to take effect. "We're flooding the system with sedative," Dr. Harrison announced over the radio, his professional composure finally cracking. "All teams stand by for water entry in 5 minutes. Prep all emergency medical equipment. Be prepared for the worst." As the sedative began to take effect, the sharks' movements became sluggish. Zeus was the first to release his grip, his body beginning to list to one side as the drug affected his nervous system. Bella followed, her smaller size making her more susceptible to the sedative. But Titan, largest and strongest, maintained his hold even as his movements slowed. At 8:20 and 33 seconds AM, nearly 25 minutes after the first aggressive behavior, Titan finally released Sarah's body. The massive shark sank slowly to the bottom of the cave, his gills still moving but his powerful body immobilized. The water in the cave was dark with blood, making it impossible to see clearly even with the underwater lights. Dive team leader Marcus Rodriguez was the first to enter the water, followed by 2 other rescue divers. They swam directly to the cave system, knowing that every second could mean the difference between life and death, though privately, each doubted they would find anything but tragedy. Rodriguez later described the scene. The water was so thick with blood it was like swimming through red fog. We found her at the back of the main cave. The sharks were unconscious around her, like they were guarding their kill. Sarah Williams was pulled from the water at 8:22 and 15 seconds AM, exactly 30 minutes after she had entered the lagoon for what should have been another routine training session. Paramedics were waiting on the platform, but even before they could begin their assessment, the extent of her injuries made the outcome clear. She had sustained massive trauma to her torso, severe lacerations to all 4 limbs, and catastrophic blood loss. Dr. Amanda Chin, the lead emergency physician, made the official pronouncement at 8:23 and 47 seconds AM. Time of death, 8:23 AM. Cause, multiple traumatic injuries secondary to shark attack. Massive hemorrhaging from severed femoral artery and damaged internal organs. Injuries incompatible with life. The lagoon fell silent except for the hum of the filtration system and the quiet sobs of staff members who had gathered at the edge. The sharks remained unconscious at the bottom of the cave, sedated but alive. The water slowly began to clear as the filtration system worked to remove the blood, but the horror of what had occurred would never wash away. Sarah's body was carefully placed on a stretcher and covered with a white sheet that immediately began showing spots of red. As paramedics wheeled her away, James Mitchell noticed something that would haunt him forever. Sarah's right hand, the one that had reached for him in those final desperate seconds, was still extended, fingers curled as if grasping for a salvation that had been just inches away. The entire attack, from first aggressive behavior to final death, had lasted less than 15 minutes. But those 15 minutes had destroyed not just a young woman's life, but an entire philosophy about the relationship between humans and apex predators. The 3 sharks Sarah had raised, trained, and loved had proven that no amount of human care could completely overwrite millions of years of evolution. The emergency response wasn't over. 3 sedated sharks needed immediate care to prevent them from drowning, a bitter irony given what they had just done. Ocean World's marine mammal team worked to support the unconscious sharks, ensuring water flow over their gills while the sedative slowly wore off. Even in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, protocol demanded the animals receive proper care. At 8:24 AM, the emergency response shifted into full crisis mode. Ocean World's director, Patricia Hoffman, arrived at the scene to find organized police units, fire trucks, and additional ambulances filled the employee parking lot. The main entrance had been sealed, with confused visitors being turned away by security. Inside the park, nearly 100 staff members had gathered near the Shark Lagoon, many in tears, unable to process what had just occurred. First responders established a command post near the Marine Education Center. Police Sergeant Michael Davis took charge of the scene, immediately recognizing this wasn't just a tragic accident but potentially a crime scene requiring full investigation. "We need to secure the entire area," he commanded. "No one enters or leaves without documentation. All witnesses need to be interviewed. And someone needs to notify the family before this hits the media." Dr. Harrison took on the impossible task of calling David Chin. At 8:31 AM, he dialed the number with shaking hands. David answered on the Second ring, his voice cheerful. Calling to tell me Sarah broke another training record? The silence that followed stretched for eternity. David, Harrison began, his voice cracking, there's been an incident. You need to come to the park immediately. The sound of David's phone hitting the floor could be heard through the line. Inside the shark lagoon, the marine mammal team worked frantically to save the 3 sedated sharks. Dr. Jennifer Rodriguez, Ocean World's senior veterinarian, directed the operation. We need to maintain water flow over their gills, she instructed, even as tears streamed down her. Get the emergency oxygenation system running. Whatever happened, we have a responsibility to these animals. Several staff members voiced their disgust at saving the sharks that had just killed their colleague, but Rodriguez remained firm. Sarah would want us to follow protocol. She wouldn't want them to suffer. Wildlife Officer Captain Rebecca Martinez arrived at 8:45 a.m. to take control of the animal situation. Her team had dealt with shark attacks before, but never in a controlled environment with captive animals. We need water samples for toxicology, she ordered. Check for any environmental factors that might have triggered this behavior. Temperature, chemical levels, anything unusual. The investigation had to determine whether this was a preventable incident or a tragic reminder that wild animals can never be fully tamed. The rescue divers who had retrieved Sarah's body underwent immediate decontamination and counseling. Marcus Rodriguez, the dive team leader, sat in shock, still in his wetsuit. I've recovered bodies before, he told the crisis counselor, but the way they attacked her, it wasn't like anything I've ever seen. They hunted her like she was prey, not the person who'd cared for them their entire lives. Paramedic Jennifer Walsh completed the official medical report at 9:02 a.m. The document detailed injuries almost too horrific to comprehend. Massive tissue loss from multiple shark bites. Severed femoral artery in right leg. Punctured lung cavity. Severe lacerations to all extremities. Estimated blood loss exceeding 60% of total volume. Death likely occurred within 3 to 4 minutes of the initial severe bite. The clinical language couldn't capture the brutality of what had occurred. News of the attack spread rapidly through Ocean World's staff network. Employees who weren't scheduled to work began arriving, drawn by disbelief and grief. Sarah's fellow trainers gathered near the sea lion habitat, sharing stories and trying to understand how everything had gone so. She was the best of us, sobbed Katie Miller, who had worked alongside Sarah for 3 years. If this could happen to her, what does that say about what we do? At 9:15 a.m., Titan began showing signs of consciousness. The massive shark's tail moved weakly as the sedative wore off. Dr. Rodriguez monitored his vital signs carefully. Despite what he had done, her veterinary oath required her to ensure his well-being. Zeus and Bella remained deeply sedated, their smaller body mass making them more susceptible to the drugs. Staff members used specialized slings to support them in the water, preventing them from sinking and drowning. David Shin arrived at 9:22 a.m., still in his pajamas, having driven recklessly from their apartment. Security guards had to physically support him as he demanded to see Sarah. Where is she? Where is she? His anguished cries echoed across the park. Dr. Harrison and a grief counselor intercepted him before he could reach the medical tent where Sarah's body had been placed. The moment they confirmed his worst fears, David collapsed, his body racked with sobs that seemed to come from his soul. The investigation team began collecting evidence immediately. Every piece of equipment Sarah had used was bagged and tagged. Water samples were taken from multiple locations in the lagoon. The shark's food from the previous week was tested for contamination. Security footage from the past month was copied for detailed analysis. We need to understand everything, Captain Martinez explained. Diet changes, behavioral shifts, environmental factors, anything that might explain why 3 hand-raised sharks suddenly reverted to hunting behavior. Ocean World's public relations director, Margaret Liu, faced the media gathering outside the main gate. At 9:45 a.m., she delivered a brief statement. We can confirm that a tragic incident has occurred involving one of our marine specialists. The employee's family has been notified. The park is closed while authorities investigate. We ask for privacy and respect during this difficult time. Reporters shouted questions about sharks and safety, but Lou refused to provide details. Inside the park, a disturbing discovery was made at 10 a.m. Security Officer James Mitchell, reviewing his body camera footage, noticed something crucial. "Look at this," he told investigators, rewinding the video. Right before the first aggressive move, all 3 sharks turned their heads toward the filtration intake at the exact same moment. Something came through that system that triggered them. This observation would become a key focus of the investigation. The sharks gradually regained full consciousness, but their behavior remained abnormal. Titan, usually the most interactive with humans, now stayed at the bottom of the lagoon, completely unresponsive to any stimuli. Zeus swam in tight circles, a stress behavior he'd never exhibited before. Bella hovered near the cave entrance, her body language suggesting extreme agitation. It was as if they, too, were traumatized by what had occurred. Dr. Patricia Meredith, the shark behaviorist who had warned about the animal's aggression, arrived at 10:30 a.m. She had driven from Los Angeles. The moment she heard the news, "I need to see all the footage," she told investigators. "Not just from today, but from the past 3 months. Something changed in these animals' behavior patterns, and we missed it. Sarah missed it. We all missed it." Elena Williams, Sarah's mother, arrived at the park at 10:45 a.m. Unlike David's explosive grief, Elena's was quiet, contained, terrifying in its stillness. She stood at the edge of the shark lagoon, staring at the now clear water. "She loved them," Elena whispered. She said they were like her children. "How do your children turn on you?" No one had an answer. The medical examiner arrived at 11 a.m. to officially take custody of Sarah's body. The formal examination would document every injury, create a detailed map of the attack pattern, and provide crucial information for the investigation. Dr. Roger Thompson, the county's senior medical examiner, had performed thousands of autopsies, but he paused before beginning this one. "In 30 years, I've never seen injuries quite like these from captive animals," he noted. Ocean World's board of directors convened an emergency meeting via conference call at 11:30 a.m. The discussion was heated and painful. "How did this happen?" demanded board chairman Richard Foster. "We have millions in safety protocols. We're supposed to be the gold standard for marine mammal facilities. And now one of our employees is dead, killed by animals she raised from birth." The legal ramifications were staggering, but they paled in comparison to the human tragedy. By noon, the sedative had completely worn off all 3 sharks. Their behavior was studied intensely by marine biologists trying to understand what had triggered the attack. Blood samples were drawn for hormone analysis. Underwater cameras recorded their every movement, but the sharks gave no clear answers. They simply swam in their patterns, occasionally pausing near the cave where the attack had culminated, as if confused by the lingering scent of blood despite the filtered water. Wildlife officers faced a difficult decision about the shark's fate. In cases of fatal attacks by wild animals, euthanasia was standard protocol. But these weren't wild animals. They were valuable research subjects, born in captivity, part of breeding programs for species conservation. "We can't just kill them," Dr. Rodriguez argued. "They're not rabid dogs. Something triggered this behavior, and we need to understand what." The debate would rage for hours. The staff cafeteria became a makeshift counseling center as Ocean World brought in crisis counselors to help employees process the tragedy. Many spoke of their confusion and fear. "If Sarah wasn't safe, none of us are safe," said Marcus. Sarah's research on shark cognition and behavior was published posthumously, with extensive notes from David and her colleagues providing context. The work was groundbreaking in many ways, documenting behaviors and cognitive abilities previously unrecognized in lemon sharks. But every paper came with a dark footnote. The researcher who had made these discoveries had been killed by her subjects, raising questions about the ethics of such close observation. Conservation efforts were impacted in complex ways. Some organizations reported increased difficulty in fundraising, as Sarah's death reinforced public fear of sharks. Others found her story compelling for different reasons, proof that sharks were magnificent predators deserving of respect and protection, not domestication. Sarah Williams died because we forgot that loving nature means accepting it on its own terms. 1. Conservation leaders stated. Her tragedy should inspire better protection for sharks in their natural habitat, not attempts to tame them. The Williams family established an annual scholarship at UC San Diego in Sarah's name, supporting students studying marine biology with a focus on conservation. Elena Williams presented the first scholarship personally, telling the recipient, "My daughter believed knowledge could conquer fear. She was right about that, even if she was wrong about other things. Study these animals, protect them, but never forget what they are." 5 years after the attack, a documentary titled Predator's Paradise: The Ocean World Tragedy premiered, featuring interviews with survivors, experts, and previously unseen footage. The film reignited debates about captive wildlife and human hubris. David Chin participated reluctantly, hoping to ensure Sarah was remembered as more than just a victim. "She was brilliant, passionate, and dedicated," he said on camera. "She made a fatal mistake, but that doesn't erase the good she did. It just reminds us that even experts can be wrong." The site of the attack was eventually transformed into a memorial education center. Where the Shark Lagoon once stood, interactive exhibits now taught visitors about shark conservation, marine ecosystems, and the importance of respectful wildlife observation. The bronze plaque at the entrance read, "In memory of Sarah Williams, 1991 to 2019, who dedicated her life to understanding and protecting sharks. May her passion inspire us and her fate remind us that nature demands our respect, not our assumptions." Research into the specific triggers of the attack continued for years. Scientists identified multiple factors that had combined to create the tragedy. Hormonal changes in the sharks, chemical triggers from the contaminated water, behavioral modifications from years of human interaction, creating conflicting instincts and subtle warning signs that had been misinterpreted or ignored. No single factor caused the attack. It was a cascade of circumstances that aligned with devastating results. The legacy of Sarah Williams became a cautionary tale taught in marine biology programs worldwide. Professors used her case to illustrate the dangers of anthropomorphism, the importance of maintaining professional boundaries with study subjects, and the need for constant vigilance when working with potentially dangerous animals. She was an excellent scientist who let her emotions cloud her judgment, became the standard assessment. Her death reminds us that in wildlife biology, love and understanding must be balanced with respect and caution. Ocean World eventually closed its doors permanently in 2022, unable to recover from the financial and reputational damage. The facility that had educated millions about marine life became a victim of its own tragedy. As demolition crews dismantled the abandoned Shark Lagoon, they found something poignant: Sarah's initials carved into a support beam, dated from her first day of work. Even in destruction, reminders of her presence lingered. The 3 sharks lived out their lives in Hawaii, dying of natural causes years later. Bella passed first in 2024, followed by Zeus in 2026. Titan, massive male who had delivered the fatal wounds, survived until 2027. None ever showed signs of the trained behaviors Sarah had taught them. They lived and died as sharks, nothing more or less, their brief intersection with human affection leaving no lasting mark on their nature. In the end, Sarah Williams's story became different things to different people. To her family, she remained a beloved daughter whose passion had led to tragedy. To the scientific community, she became a reminder of the importance of objectivity and safety protocols. To the public, she was either a victim of her own hubris or a martyr to conservation, depending on perspective. But perhaps David Chin captured it best in his final interview. Sarah believed sharks were misunderstood. She was right, but she also misunderstood them. That's the paradox that killed her. Can love something and still not truly know it. Nature keeps its own counsel, and we forget that at our peril. The expert analysis of Sarah Williams's death brought together some of the world's leading authorities on shark behavior, marine biology, and human-animal interactions. The collective insights painted a complex picture of how multiple factors aligned to create a perfect storm of tragedy. On that August morning, Dr. Richard Campagno, recognized as the world's foremost expert on shark taxonomy and behavior, flew in from South Africa to analyze the attack. Footage. With over 40 years of studying sharks in both wild and captive environments, his assessment was sobering. What we witnessed in that lagoon was a textbook example of what I call instinct cascade, Dr. Campagno explained during his presentation to the investigative panel. The sharks didn't suddenly become aggressive. Instead, multiple environmental and chemical triggers activated dormant predatory behaviors that had been suppressed but never eliminated by their captive upbringing. Dr. Campagno's frame-by-frame analysis of the security footage revealed disturbing details that had been missed in the initial chaos. Timestamp 7 hours 58 minutes and 32 seconds, you can see all three sharks simultaneously orient toward Sarah. This synchronization suggests they detected a chemical cue, likely the amino acids from the contaminated water that mimicked injured prey. What's remarkable is how 20 years of hand feeding instantly became irrelevant when their chemoreceptors detected what their brains interpreted as wounded fish. The hormonal analysis conducted by Dr. Marina Testosterone, an endocrinologist specializing in elasmobranch physiology, added another layer to the understanding. The blood samples taken from the sharks post-attack showed testosterone levels 400% higher than their baseline measurements from just a month prior, she reported. In Titan particularly, we found levels consistent with peak mating aggression in wild populations. This hormonal surge would have significantly lowered their threshold for aggressive behavior while simultaneously increasing their reactivity to environmental stimuli. Dr. Ellen Vasquez, the behavioral expert who had analyzed the footage, presented her findings on the sharks' hunting formation. The carousel feeding pattern these sharks exhibited is not something they could have learned in captivity. This is genetically hardwired behavior, passed down through millions of years of evolution. The fact that 3 sharks raised in isolation from wild populations could spontaneously coordinate this complex hunting strategy proves that no amount of human conditioning can overwrite fundamental predatory programming. Her analysis included comparative footage from wild lemon shark populations. Watch this footage from Bimini of wild lemon sharks hunting a school of mullet. Now compare it to the Ocean World attack. The body positioning, the coordinated movements, the escalating circular pattern. They're identical. Sarah Williams was transformed from caretaker to prey item in their perception, and once that switch flipped, 20 years of hand feeding became meaningless. Dr. Samuel Morrison, a veterinary pathologist who examined tissue samples from Sarah's wetsuit, made a chilling discovery about the attack sequence. The bite patterns tell a specific story. Bella's initial bite was investigatory, shallow penetration, quick release. This is typical shark behavior when encountering unfamiliar prey. However, the chemical markers in Sarah's blood would have immediately identified her as suitable. Zeus's subsequent bite showed 60% more pressure, indicating feeding intention. Titan's attack was full predatory force, maximum bite pressure, violent lateral head movement designed to cause catastrophic damage. Psychological analysis of Sarah's behavior leading up to the attack was provided by Dr. Jennifer Blackwood, who specialized in human wildlife interaction psychology. Sarah exhibited what we call expertise bias combined with severe anthropomorphic transference. Her extensive experience created a false sense of security, while her emotional attachment to the sharks caused her to interpret their behaviors through a human emotional framework. When Titan displayed classic pre-attack posturing, she interpreted it as showing off. This represents a catastrophic failure in risk assessment brought on by emotional interference. Dr. Blackwood's review of Sarah's journal entries and social media posts revealed an escalating pattern of risk-taking behavior. 6 months before the attack, Sarah wrote, "Titan brushed against me today with his mouth open. I could see every tooth. It was like he was showing me he could hurt me but chooses not to. The trust between us is complete." This interpretation is dangerously naive. The shark was displaying threat behavior, testing boundaries. Sarah's response reinforced to the animal that she was not a threat, potentially categorizing her as prey rather than predator. Marine toxicologist Dr. Alan Foster's analysis of the water contamination provided crucial context. The untreated ocean water that entered the lagoon contained concentrated amino acids from a red tide event occurring offshore. The concentration was approximately 500 times what the sharks would normally encounter. To put this in perspective, imagine walking into a room where someone has heated bacon grease to smoking. The olfactory assault would be overwhelming. For sharks, whose chemoreception is infinitely more sensitive, this would have triggered an immediate and involuntary feeding response. Dr. Foster's team had recreated the chemical conditions in laboratory settings with smaller shark species. When exposed to similar amino acid concentrations, even well-fed nurse sharks, typically docile creatures, displayed immediate hunting behaviors. They attacked anything that moved in their tank. The chemical override of learned behavior was complete and instantaneous. Biomechanics expert Dr. Robert Chin, no relation to David Chin, analyzed the physical dynamics of the attack. An adult lemon shark can exert over 400 pounds of pressure per square inch with its bite. When you factor in the lateral head movement, what we call head shaking, forces involved are catastrophic. Sarah's wetsuit, designed for thermal protection, offered essentially zero defense against this level of mechanical trauma. Even the chainmail suits she refused to wear would have only delayed the inevitable given the coordinated nature of the attack. His calculations were grimly specific. Based on the bite radius and depth of penetration, Titan's attack delivered approximately 2,100 pounds of force to Sarah's torso. This is equivalent to being hit by a small car at 30 miles per hour, but concentrated into the space of a shark's jaw. The human body simply cannot withstand such forces. Comparative behaviorist Dr. Lisa Park examined similar incidents worldwide. In the past 50 years, there have been only 7 documented cases of captive-raised sharks fatally attacking their handlers. In every case, we see the same pattern: long periods of peaceful interaction, subtle behavioral changes, dismissed by handlers, an environmental trigger, and then sudden, catastrophic aggression. The ocean world incident is unique only in that it involved multiple animals coordinating their attack. Her database revealed disturbing patterns. In the 1998 Sea Life Park incident, a nurse shark that had been hand-raised for 15 years attacked its handler after a malfunction in the feeding system exposed it to blood from the medical lab. In 2005, a zoo in Germany lost a keeper to their bonnet-head sharks following an electrical malfunction that may have triggered aggression. Each time, the handlers believed their relationship with the animals would protect them. Each time, they were wrong. Neurobiologist Dr. Patricia Kellner studied the cognitive aspects of the shark's behavior. Lemon sharks have larger brains relative to body size than many other shark species. This allows for more complex behaviors, including social learning and long-term memory formation. However, this same neural complexity means they can experience conflicting behavioral drives. The sharks at Ocean World had 2 decades of conditioning saying, "Humans equal food source," competing with millions of years of evolution saying, "Injured animal equals food." When the chemical trigger was strong enough, evolution won. Her research included EEG readings from captive sharks exposed to various stimuli. When we expose captive-raised sharks to prey stimulus chemicals, we see immediate activation in the medial pallium, the region associated with predatory behavior. This activation occurs regardless of training, feeding schedule, or familiarity with handlers. It's as involuntary as a human's pupil dilating in darkness. Dr. Michael Thornton, who had spent 30 years studying human-predator interactions, provided perhaps the most philosophical analysis. Humans have a unique capacity for self-deception when it comes to dangerous animals. We see it with people who keep tigers as pets, who swim, with crocodiles, who handle venomous snakes. There's an intoxicating element to believing you've formed a special bond with something that could kill you. Sarah Williams fell into this trap, but with the added veneer of scientific credibility. She convinced herself that her emotional interpretation of shark behavior was objective observation. His review of Sarah's published papers showed a gradual shift from scientific objectivity to emotional advocacy. In her early work, Williams correctly identified and documented aggressive displays in her subjects. By her final year, she was reinterpreting these same behaviors as affectionate communication. This is not science, it's wishful thinking dressed in academic language. Ethologist Dr. Jane Maritime focused on the social dynamics between the three sharks. What's particularly fascinating and tragic about this case is how the sharks reverted to wild cooperative hunting behaviors they'd never observed. This suggests such behaviors are genetically encoded, rather than learned. When the right triggers aligned, chemical stimuli, hormonal state, and prey-like behavior from Sarah, they instinctively formed a hunting pack despite having no model for such behavior. Her analysis included comparisons to other social predators in captivity. We see similar phenomena in captive-raised wolves who spontaneously form pack hunting formations despite never observing wild hunts. The behavioral template exists in their DNA, waiting for the right combination of triggers to activate. The ocean world sharks demonstrated that decades of human conditioning merely overlaid these instincts rather than replacing them. Dr. Carlos Mendez, a specialist in aquarium safety protocols, delivered a harsh assessment of ocean world's procedures. This facility prioritized spectacular interactions over safety. The culture Sarah Williams operated in encouraged increasingly risky behavior because it generated positive publicity. When Dr. Meredith warned about aggressive displays, the response was to defend the sharks rather than protect the human. Represents a fundamental failure in risk management philosophy. His review of ocean world's safety equipment revealed critical gaps. The emergency response equipment was positioned assuming a conscious, cooperative victim. There were no provisions for a coordinated attack by multiple animals. The acoustic deterrents that failed had never been tested under actual attack conditions. The entire safety system was based on the assumption that the sharks would never seriously attack. Fatally flawed premise. Forensic psychologist Dr. Amanda Rivers examined the cultural factors that contributed to the tragedy. Ocean World created an environment where questioning animal behavior was seen as lacking faith in the human-animal bond. Employees who raised safety concerns were subtly marginalized as not being true believers. Sarah Williams, as the star performer, faced enormous pressure to push boundaries. Her identity became so intertwined with being the shark whisperer that acknowledging danger would have meant questioning her entire sense of self. The synthesis of all these expert opinions painted a clear picture. Sarah Williams died because multiple failures aligned catastrophically. The chemical contamination triggered dormant instincts. Hormonal changes lowered aggression thresholds. Years of dismissed warning signs created false confidence. Institutional culture prioritized spectacle over safety. And ultimately, the fundamental nature of apex predators reasserted itself, with lethal consequences. Dr. Campagno summarized the consensus in his final statement to the investigative panel. Sarah Williams was killed by a perfect storm of factors. But at its core, she died because we forgot a simple truth. No matter how long a shark lives in captivity, no matter how gently it's treated, no matter how much we anthropomorphize its behaviors, it remains a superpredator shaped by 400 million years of evolution. The tragedy at ocean World reminds us that respecting nature means accepting its fundamental character, not attempting to rewrite it according to our emotional needs. These expert analyses would reshape how the entire marine biology community approached human-shark interactions, ensuring that Sarah Williams's death, while tragic, would not be in vain. The collective wisdom gained from studying her final moments would save lives in the future, even as it painted a stark picture of the dangers of confusing affection with scientific observation. Sarah Williams's tragedy teaches us profound lessons about the complex relationship between humans and apex predators. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that love and understanding, while admirable, must be balanced with respect for the fundamental nature of wild animals. Sarah believed she had transcended the barrier between human and shark, that her dedication and care had created bonds stronger than millions of years of evolution. She paid the ultimate price for this belief, but her death was not in vain if we learn the right lessons from it. The most critical lesson from Sarah's story is that anthropomorphism, attributing human emotions and motivations to animals, can be deadly. When applied to apex predators, Sarah saw affection where there was merely conditioned response. She interpreted routine behaviors as signs of love and trust. When Titan approached her closely, she saw a greeting from a friend rather than a predator testing boundaries. This emotional projection blinded her to warning signs that, in retrospect, were unmistakable. Every animal professional must remember that while we may love the creatures in our care, they do not love us back in any human sense of the word. The prevention strategies that emerged from the ocean world investigation have become standard across the marine facility industry. First and foremost is the two-barrier rule. There must always be at least 2 physical barriers between humans and potentially dangerous animals. Can be cage walls, protective suits, or safety equipment, but never should a handler rely solely on training or relationship. The days of swimming freely with large predators, as Sarah did, are over in accredited facilities. The risk has been proven too great, the consequences too severe. Regular behavioral assessments by independent experts are now mandatory for all facilities housing dangerous animals. The Sarah Protocol requires that any significant behavioral changes trigger an automatic review of human-animal interaction privileges. If an animal displays aggression, increased territoriality, or unusual focus on handlers, all direct contact must cease until experts can evaluate the situation. Sarah's colleagues noticed changes in the shark's behavior but dismissed them because they trusted her expertise. External evaluation provides the objectivity that familiarity erodes. Environmental monitoring has been revolutionized following the discovery of the chemical trigger in Sarah's case. Modern facilities now employ real-time water quality analysis that can detect amino acid spikes, hormonal contamination, or any chemical signatures that might trigger predatory behavior. The systems that failed at Ocean World, allowing untreated ocean water to flood the shark lagoon, would be impossible in today's facilities. Multiple redundancies ensure that animals are never exposed to chemical triggers that could override their conditioning. Sarah Williams is remembered in many ways by those whose lives she touched. To the children who attended her educational programs, she remains the brave woman who taught them not to fear sharks. Her YouTube channel, though frozen in time, continues to educate viewers about shark biology and behavior, albeit now with warning labels about the dangers of unprotected interaction. Teachers use her videos as examples of both passion for marine life and the importance of maintaining professional boundaries. The Sarah Williams Memorial Fund has supported dozens of graduate students in marine biology, all of whom study shark behavior and conservation from a safe distance. These students learn about Sarah's contributions to the field, her groundbreaking research on shark cognition, her innovative training techniques, her ability to communicate complex science to the public. But they also learn about her fatal flaw, the belief that understanding could overcome instinct. Each scholarship recipient must write an essay on maintaining objectivity in animal research, ensuring that Sarah's emotional approach serves as a cautionary tale. Ocean World, the site of the tragedy, no longer exists. The facility closed permanently 3 years after Sarah's death, unable to recover from the financial and reputational damage. Where the Shark Lagoon once stood, a public park now offers views of the Pacific Ocean. A small memorial plaque is the only reminder of what occurred there. Family's picnic where Sarah once swam with her angels, most unaware of the tragedy that unfolded in that space. Perhaps this transformation, from a site of spectacular human-animal interaction to a simple public space, represents the lesson learned that some boundaries should not be crossed. The broader impact on marine conservation has been complex. Sarah's death initially caused a downturn in public support for shark conservation, as media coverage reinforced stereotypes of sharks as mindless killers. However, conservation organizations successfully reframed the narrative. Sharks don't need to be tamed or befriended to deserve protection. They need to be respected as the apex predators they are, vital to ocean ecosystems regardless of whether they can form bonds with humans. Sarah's death, paradoxically, may have helped shark conservation by ending the trend of shark whisperers who promoted unsafe interactions. The 3 sharks who killed Sarah, Bella, Titan, and Zeus, lived out their remaining years in a research facility in Hawaii, contributing to scientific understanding while never again interacting directly with humans. Their brain tissue, donated to science after their natural deaths, revealed no abnormalities that might explain the attack. They were simply sharks who, when presented with the right combination of stimuli, did what sharks have done for millions of years. Their tragedy was not in their nature but in the human belief that nature could be fundamentally changed through care and training. For those considering careers working with dangerous animals, Sarah's story offers crucial guidance. Passion is essential, but it must be tempered with objectivity. Love for animals should inspire us to understand and protect them, not to prove our special connection by taking unnecessary risks. The most successful wildlife professionals maintain emotional distance not because they care less, but because they understand that anthropomorphism clouds judgment and increases danger. The warning signs that preceded Sarah's death have been codified into training materials used worldwide. Changes in routine behavior, increased focus on handlers, territorial displays, and coordinated movements among multiple animals are all now recognized as red flags requiring immediate cessation of direct contact. The underwater footage of the shark's pre-attack behavior has become a textbook example of predatory escalation. Students study how each warning sign built upon the previous one, creating a cascade that ended in tragedy. If you work with or around dangerous animals, remember these critical points. Never assume that time equals trust. A snake that has been handled for 20 years is still a snake. A shark raised from birth is still a shark. Their nature remains unchanged regardless of human interaction. Always maintain appropriate barriers, physical and emotional. Use proper safety equipment even if it seems unnecessary. Listen to outside experts who may see dangers you've become blind to through familiarity. And most importantly, respect the animal enough to accept what it truly is rather than what you wish it to be. Sarah Williams dedicated her life to changing how people see sharks. In her death, she succeeded, though not in the way she intended. Showed us that sharks are neither mindless monsters nor misunderstood puppies of the sea. They are complex predators worthy of respect, study, and protection, but never of complete trust. Her legacy lives on in safer protocols, better science, and the understanding that loving nature means accepting its dangers along with its wonders. This is the end of our story, a tragedy that began with love and ended with a harsh reminder of nature's ultimate indifference to human emotion. Sarah Williams entered the water that August morning believing she had a special relationship with 3 sharks. She discovered, in the most brutal way possible, that the only special relationship was in her own mind. The sharks were simply being sharks, responding to stimuli as their evolution programmed them to do. Remember Sarah Williams not as a victim of the animals she loved, but as someone whose passion for understanding sharks advanced our Knowledge even as her death taught us the limits of that understanding. Share this story not to demonize sharks or discourage conservation efforts, but to ensure that future generations of marine biologists, aquarium workers, and animal enthusiasts understand the crucial difference between respect and dangerous familiarity. Subscribe to our channel for more real-life animal encounters that reveal the complex, often dangerous relationship between humans and wildlife. Every story we tell honors those who died by ensuring their lessons live on. Hit the notification bell to stay informed about new content that could one day save your life or the life of someone you love. Because in the end, the most dangerous animal is often the one we think we know best. Sarah Williams believed sharks were misunderstood. She was right, but she misunderstood them too. She saw gentleness where there was simply absence of trigger. She saw friendship where there was only conditioning. And when nature reasserted itself, all the love in the world couldn't save her from the reality of what sharks truly are: magnificent, important, worthy of protection, but forever and always predators. Her story reminds us that the ocean's apex predators have survived for hundreds of millions of years not through forming bonds with other species, but through being perfectly adapted killing machines. We can admire them, study them, and work to protect them. But we must never forget that they are not our friends, our babies, or our angels. They are sharks. And as Sarah Williams learned in her final moments, that is exactly what they should be. This concludes the tragic tale of Sarah Williams and the morning when 20 years of trust disappeared in a cloud of blood. May her story serve as a permanent reminder that in nature, respect must always outweigh affection, and understanding must never be confused with control. The ocean remains full of wonders and terrors, often embodied in the same creature. Sarah Williams loved sharks more than life itself. In the end, that love cost her everything. Rest in peace, Sarah Williams. Your passion inspired thousands, your research advanced science, and your death taught us lessons that will keep others safe. You were wrong about your sharks, but you were right about their importance. May future generations remember both truths as they work to protect these magnificent predators from a safe and respectful distance.